7-year-old granddaughter exposes an amazing secret. Grandma, take your bag and leave now. Lucy sat cross-legged in the attic, surrounded by dust and forgotten memories. The late afternoon sun filtered through the slits in the wooden beams, illuminating the box before her. She had been holding her breath ever since Grandma Joan arrived, sensing an unease that settled like a thick fog in their home. Why had her mother welcomed this stranger with open arms, ignoring the way Lucy felt her presence suffocate the air? The box creaked open, and an array of papers spilled out: old receipts, a fading photograph of a bustling family business she had never heard of, letters tinged with bitterness. With each rustling sheet, dread pooled in her stomach. She could feel the weight of secrets pressing down, twisting inside her like a roller coaster gone wrong. This wasn't just any family tale. It felt like a storm, brewing with undercurrents of jealousy and regret that her mother had tried so hard to bury. Grandma Joan, with her sweet smile and crafty stories, was a facade, and Lucy's small heart trembled with the need to protect her mother from whatever darkness lurked in this family's past. Emma was worn down, making late dinners with the shadows of exhaustion darkening her eyes. The air hung thick with tension during mealtime, moments heavy with unspoken words. Lucy couldn't ignore the way they clenched their jaws, the way they exchanged glances, half fearful, half angry. Before the dinner bell rang, frustration bubbled in Lucy's chest. She was only 7, just a child, but her intuition felt like a mighty fortress protecting her mother. Despite her small stature, she felt giant in her resolve. Would confronting Grandma Joan bring about a chaotic storm or a welcomed clarity? Each day spent with her grandmother brought a mix of amusement and lurking fears, leaving her feeling both cozy and trapped. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The dinner table felt like a battleground, with tension swirling like dark smoke. Lucy could sense the moment was approaching, the air heavy and charged. She clenched her fists under the table, heart racing, trying to drown out the whispers of doubt that told her she would ruin everything by speaking out. But as Grandma's stories twisted around their dinner plates, Lucy felt a fire igniting, urging her to break the cycle of silence. In one swift burst of courage, she stood up, her voice unexpectedly steady. "Grandma, take your bag and leave now." The words hung in the air, shocking every person at the table to silence. The room froze, emotions brewing to a boil, thunderous hearts pounding with unspoken truths. Would the collapse of family bonds be the key to understanding? Or would Lucy's revelation shatter everything they had built in a fragile attempt to forget? The answer lay heavy and unresolved, like a storm cloud ready to burst, leaving only questions hanging in the charged silence. The silence weighed heavily, an unbearable pause that stretched through the air like the taut strings of a violin before the first note is struck. Lucy's heart hammered in her chest, a rhythmic thrumming that echoed her sudden outburst. She had imagined this moment, but the reality felt more daunting than she ever anticipated. Grandma Joan's eyes widened with shock, her mouth gaping as if struggling to find words in a language she had forgotten. Emma, seated across the table, appeared frozen, her fork midway to her mouth, caught between disbelief and disbelief. The tension felt electric, a raw exposure of buried resentments unknown to Lucy until now. The stillness shattered when Joan finally inhaled sharply, breaking her stupor. "Lucy, sweetie, that's not a way to talk to your grandmother," she said, her voice strained, trying to mask the tremor beneath her words. But there was an edge to her tone that didn't escape Lucy. It was the sound of a once commanding presence now carefully tripping over her words, revealing the cracks in her veneer. "I don't want you here," Lucy shouted, her small frame trembling with unshed emotions. The child's voice, normally innocent and soft, reverberated with a fierce insistence that was startling. "Why did you come? Why did you bring all your sadness with you?" Probing deeper, her own frustrations ignited like a spark against dry kindling. Emma's face turned pale as she attempted to defuse the volatile situation. Lucy, calm down. We can talk about this. But Lucy could sense her mother's control slipping away, the protective barrier crumbling under the weight of unaddressed grievances. No. Lucy pressed, the fire overflowing as if she were challenging a tide far greater than herself. You can't let her stay. Don't you see how unhappy she makes you? Her tiny fists clutched against her knees, a gesture that belied the storm within. It was as if she were catching pieces of her mother's unhappiness in a net, desperate to release them into the world outside. Once again, Grandma Jones spiraled into a defensive stance, the softness in her eyes turning to a flint-like coldness. You don't understand how this works, young lady. The sweet facade crumbled fully, revealing the depths of a woman shaped by hidden regrets and confrontations with her past. Lucy's youthful heart, once brimming with faith in a familial bond, quaked before this new revelation. The interaction revealed a raw and visceral battle not just between generations, but between truths long silenced. Lucy's determined stance felt like a victory, yet the weight of her mother's anxieties troubled her deeply. She felt adrift and frightened, struggling to decipher the tangled emotions swirling among her grandmother, her mother, and herself. In that moment, Lucy realized she stood not just as a child but as an unexpected catalyst for change. With each shake of her grandmother's resolve, a piece of the family's history threatened to unravel, leaving her with an unnerving awareness of the stakes at play. Her heart, pumping with a blend of hope and fear, began to conceive a plan. If she could unravel one secret, perhaps others would follow, revealing the truth behind Grandma Jones's presence, leaving the chaos of untruths exposed and transparent. But how? She wasn't sure. She had crossed a line, and the divide seemed insurmountable. Just as she readied to speak, the sound of a glass crashing to the floor startled them all. The shattering echoed, amplifying the intensity that flickered between them. Would this event catalyze a storm, ushering forth a reckoning that shook their fragile family ties? Or would it lay bare the heart of darkness that lay curled within their past? The moment felt suspended, each breath drawn tight as Lucy braced herself to confront not just her grandmother but the murky depths of her own family's history. She steeled herself to dive deeper, navigating shadows she had only just begun to illuminate. It was time to steer clear of shame because the truth, she instinctively sensed, held the key to salvaging their connections. Would she be brave enough to discover it? In the ensuing quiet, the question hung heavily, stirring an urgent anticipation. Perhaps it was time to uncover not just hidden family secrets but her own evolving identity within this fractured narrative. The jagged silence that followed the crash of the glass felt like a living creature, its raw energy pulsing in the room. Lucy's gaze shifted between her mother's pale face and Grandma Jones's stiffened posture. An internal storm brewed, echoing the chaotic disruptions happening around her. She needed clarity, her quest for understanding sharpened into a resolve, propelling her into uncharted territory. Her heart began to race again, but this time, it wasn't fear driving her. It was a determination, ignited by the realization that the truth lay buried beneath layers of silence and misunderstanding. If her grandmother was as fragile as she seemed, could Lucy exploit that fragility to unearth the secrets? Her fingers twitched as she conjured up a risky plan. Maybe, she began, voice steadying, drawing her thoughts into coherence. Maybe if you tell us why you're really here, then we can understand. You brought it all here, Grandma. All this sadness and confusion. Each word felt like a slow incision, desperate to break through decades of unspoken words and familial turmoil. Joan looked momentarily disarmed, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through her steely facade. But just as quickly, the wall snapped back into place. You don't know anything about sadness, Lucy. You're just a child, this is adult business, Joan retorted, a note of disdain creeping into her voice that made Lucy's stomach twist. I don't care if I'm just a child. But I can see you're hurting, Mom, she snapped back, frustration swelling inside her like a tidal wave. And I can't just sit here and watch you both pretend everything is fine when it's not. Emma's expression softened briefly, the maternal instinct pouring in like a warm light, but she seemed paralyzed by the enormity of the moment. Lucy sensed her mother's indecision but had no time to dissect it. She had to act. "What are you hiding?" Lucy pressed, her voice rising with every syllable, turning vulnerable ambience into a fierce confrontation. "You can't keep this secret from me forever." She locked eyes with Joan, a mix of defiance and pleading urgency bubbling beneath the surface. The words hung in the air, and Lucy, in that instant, grasped her own unexpected power. With her pulse racing, she realized she wasn't merely demanding answers, she was reclaiming her stake in the family narrative. This was about her, too, not a passive observer destined to be overshadowed by the decisions and sadness of the adults around her. Despite the weight of centuries of silence pressed against her small frame, she felt emboldened as fragments of self-identity surged within. She could question Joan without fear, wielding the simple truth of her own existence as leverage. "You need to face what you've done, Grandma. We all do." With each heartbeat, her capacity for bravery began to translate into a tangible vision, like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Lucy envisioned a world where she held agency, an evolving narrative fueled by desire for familial unity, not distortion. Suddenly, Joan's demeanor wavered. The stern lines around her mouth softened as she contemplated the weight of Lucy's words. There was a flicker of something in her eyes. Was it regret? Fear? For the first time, Grandma Joan seemed less like an untouchable figure and more like a flawed human being. But just as quickly, that moment threatened to dissipate with an abrupt, violent shake of the table, followed by a distant but unmistakable shout from the next room. It jolted them back to reality, underscoring that unresolved tensions lingered just beyond the door. "Lucy," her mother's voice sliced through the air, laced with desperation, "we really should go and see what's happening," but Lucy held her ground, body taut as she prepared to defy the pull of her mother's panic. "No, Mom," she asserted, her tone unwavering. "This is our moment to challenge her. We need to push through this, not run away." The decision bore down heavier than the broken glass that lay scattered beneath their feet. Would Lucy's bravery in facing her grandmother's sorrow scatter the ghosts that haunted their family, or would it unravel the very fabric they fought to maintain? As the distant shout loomed again, a darker uncertainty cloaked the room. The confrontation was inescapably at its precipice. Would they each step beyond the fragile edges of their histories into something brighter, or shatter under the weight of their own secrets, like the remnants of that glass? The tension in the air fizzed like static electricity as Lucy's defiance hung between them, pulsing with the weight of unprocessed grief. The shout from the next room faded into a dull hum, eclipsed by the thrum of her own heartbeat racing in her ears. She had felt that rare flicker of power over the family narrative, and she wasn't about to let it slip away now. "Grandma," she pressed, her voice barely above a whisper, yet sharper than the broken glass on the floor. "You owe us an explanation. It's been too long." She squared her shoulders, her small frame a contrast against the adults who towered over her but felt so much smaller in this moment. Joan looked away, the vulnerability slipping away like water through her fingers. "You think you know so much, don't you?" There was bitterness in her tone, a defense mechanism rising to shield the soft underbelly of regret Lucy had glimpsed. "You're a child in a world ruled by unkind adults. None of this is for your understanding. You should be outside playing, not digging through old wounds." With every dismissive statement Joan uttered, Lucy's resolve solidified. She was no mere rhetorical matchstick longing to ignite circumstances. She was the wind, shifting patterns, reshaping the course of their family heritage. "I can't just sit and pretend like everything is normal. Don't you see what this is doing to Mom?" Emma shifted uncomfortably beside her, yearning to intervene but seemingly paralyzed, caught in the gravity of decades buried in her mother's silence. It sparked something in Lucy. This was not just about breaking through Joan's walls but about liberating her mother, too. "Being a child doesn't mean I have no voice," Lucy pressed on, letting the heat of the moment fuel her words. "It means I've been watching you all pretend for too long." Her clenched fists relaxed at her sides, revealing fingernails imprinted with crescent moons from anxiety. "Tell us why you came. Was it guilt? Regret? Fear? Because I can't handle the ambiguity any longer." The atmosphere shifted, hanging in a delicate balance, and for a moment, Joan's defenses dangerously wavered again. Lucy noticed it, the way her grandmother's eyes squinted, as if looking at a photograph unfocused. "Lucy, if I tell you, there are things you might wish you never learned. You may not want to hear the truth." "Try me," Lucy retorted, heart racing, adrenaline sharpening her focus. "I'm not afraid." And she wasn't. She felt the thrill of confronting destiny itself, each second pulling her deeper into a reality she desperately needed to understand. Because deep down, she knew the world of secrets was darker than any sunny illusion had ever led her to believe. Joan took a deep breath, her facade cracking, layers of history exposed like peeling paint. "The truth," she began, her voice faltering. "The truth is I was never the person you thought I was. I made choices that affected everyone, and they have hung over this family like a storm cloud." Lucy leaned in, feeling the warmth of her mother's presence now urging her on, unrestrained. The concept of not knowing began to dissolve as excitement chimed through her veins, like a new revelation waiting to unfold. But before Joan could elaborate, the unmistakable shout rose again, sharper this time, slicing through the room like a knife. They could hear the chaos spill over, shadows looming closer, calling them back to reality. "Mom!" Lucy yelled, a mix of urgency and fear transforming the cadence of her voice. "What is that? We can't ignore this." In the throbbing silence that followed, Joan looked terrified, but something began to shift. It was not only fear reflected back at Lucy, but a glimpse of understanding acknowledgement that her own tumultuous past could finally be spoken. And in that moment, the outlines of a reckoning began to form, brimming with the possibility of healing. "Is now the time for revelations, Grandma?" Lucy asked, hope entangled with disbelief. "Will you finally tell us your secrets?" The fractured glass sparkled beneath them, an unsettling metaphor for the fragile bridge they were about to walk over. Would Joan's story be a tapestry woven with learning and growth, or a thread leading to more unraveling? The moment of reckoning sat in the air, suspended, as the distant chaos grew louder. This was no longer just a conversation, this was a defining moment, threatening to tear them apart or finally bring them closer together. The tension was palpable as Joan's trembling hands clutched the edge of the table. Lucy's heart raced in synchronization with the escalating chaos that reverberated from the other room. She felt a compulsion to act, to be the catalyst that could ignite change. But how could she shift the focus back to her grandmother without losing the pivotal moment they were on the brink of? "Janice," Joan whispered, her voice laden with hesitation, "I didn't want this for you. You deserve so much more, Mom." "This isn't about me," Lucy interrupted, her confidence hardening like steel. "It's about us, about our past, your past. If you know something that could help us, I demand you share it." Seeing her mother's discomfort only fueled Lucy's conviction. Joan's facade of indifference began to crack, revealing layers of guilt and confusion that Lucy needed to address. Was the truth a balm for their wounds, or another layer of pain yet to be unveiled? Each second felt like an eternity, the urgency in the air demanded resolution, yet the looming chaos in the hallway suggested a storm waiting to break. As Lucy studied her grandmother, she realized this revelation might traverse more than just their family history, it could also shape her own identity. "Tell us about the choices you made, the ones that shaped our family," she urged, her voice regaining power. "Was it all worth it? What did you sacrifice?" Joan recoiled at the raw authenticity of Lucy's words. "You think you understand sacrifice? You're still so young," she countered, but the cracks were deepening, and Lucy sensed the shift even more. "You have no idea what I was up against." "I know more than you think," Lucy shot back, each word charged with her determination to peel back the layers of secrecy encasing their lives. "You may think shielding us from the truth is love, but silence will drown us. Not knowing will destroy what's left of this family." Joan's eyes flickered with a mix of admiration and regret. In that moment, Lucy felt a surge of something akin to empowerment. Here she was, not merely a bystander but a voice of reason, bearing the mantle of their family truths. "Please," she insisted, "tell me it's not too late for us to heal. I want to let our family hysteria turn into further torment. It's our time to reclaim our narrative." The urgency of their situation pierced through both of them as they awaited the truth, suspended like a bowstring pulled taut. Joan finally met Lucy's gaze, and in her quaking eyes, the shadows of years spent in silence reverberated painfully. "Fine. I'll tell you," Joan acquiesced, but just as clarity began to creep into the shadows of secrets, the unsettling noises from the hallway crescendoed into a cacophony so alarming, it felt as if the very walls might weep in response. "Mom!" Lucy shouted once more, heart pounding like a war drum. "Why is this happening? What do we have to do?" But the words hung in the air, wrapped in tension, each family's secret poised to flood out in a way neither of them could anticipate. Joan's response faltered, caught between her desire to protect and an instinctive push toward honesty. As her grandmother prepared to finally disclose the depths of her choices, Lucy caught her breath, poised on the precipice of understanding, ready for revelations that could profoundly alter the course of her life and perhaps, the life of her mother too. But even then, before the air could fully clear, the raucous shouts returned, pushing the moment toward a precipice. The tension built, a promise unfulfilled. What lurked behind that uncertainty, both in the hall and in Joan's heart? The moment of truth teetered dangerously close, and what lay in the balance could very well define their family's future. Would the chaos outside prove to be a mere distraction, or would it unravel everything they had fought to piece together? Lucy's heart pounded, the second stretching into an unbearable silence after her frantic plea. The noises from outside were no longer mere chaos, they had escalated into shouts that became indistinguishable and overwhelming. Anxiety coiled tightly in her chest, and she diverted her focus back to her grandmother. This was her moment, she reminded herself, an opportunity not just to uncover family secrets but to reclaim power over her own identity and future. "Mom, we need to know now," Lucy insisted, desperation creeping into her demeanor. "Whatever is happening out there, we can't let it stop us from confronting the truth." Joan's eyes, full of conflict, met Lucy's gaze, and hesitation danced behind the lines of her face. "It's not just my story to tell, Lucy. It's filled with shadows I tried to keep you both away from." "Shadows?" Lucy questioned, incredulous. "Shadows don't just vanish. They linger, and without light, they only grow larger and more menacing." Resilience ignited within her as she leaned in closer. The stakes felt higher than ever, each secret unveiled would probe deeper into their psyche. The very foundation of their relationship depended on this. "I am ready to know. Whatever it is, please, let me carry it with you. I won't break. I promise I won't." Her words were sharp and defining, striking chords that echoed within the room. For a brief moment, the external chaos faded into the background, drowned out by the intensity of their connection. Joan drew in a shaky breath, uncertainty evident on her face as she weighed her options, the weight of years of secrets crashing into the present. "Do you really want to know?" "The truth, it has the power to reshape everything." Lucy nodded, steeling herself against the potential tremors of processed emotion. She felt the familiar hesitation from childhood wash over her. It was the uncertainty of entering unknown territories where she had no prior map, yet the urge to explore was unfathomable. "Years ago," Joan began slowly, her voice trembling, "I made a choice that not only affected me but altered the trajectory of your lives. I believed I was protecting you both. I thought I could bear the weight alone." She looked away, echoing the shame that Lucy could sense developing a world of its own in the room. "But holding back, it's a different kind of burden," Lucy murmured, her own understanding deepening. At that moment, clarity struck like lightning. Lucy realized it was not just about Joan's choices, it was about learning to stand firm in the tumult of consequences that life thrust upon them. "You're not alone anymore, Mom. I can handle this." Lucy squeezed her grandmother's hand, anchoring her to the present, bridging the gap that silence had driven between them. "Please, don't underestimate what we can face together. This is our chance." An explosion of voices erupted from the hallway again, snapping both women back to harsh reality. Lucy could see fear and urgency in Joan's eyes, but something shifted in her grandmother's posture, a determination ignited by the connection they were forging. "This isn't just about my history," Joan whispered, a hint of resolve behind her words. There is more at stake, more than I ever anticipated. You deserve honesty and strength. You are ready to face it." As they both braced against the noises spiraling into an inferno of chaos, a decision crystallized in Lucy's mind. It was no longer about them simply learning the truth. It was about standing united against uncertainty, a bond that thrummed with the promise of revelation. "Whatever happens next, we do it together," Lucy asserted, her voice laced with newfound confidence. This moment marked a pivot in her journey, from silent observer to active participant in her family narrative. While the external threats loomed, inside Lucy felt calm and sturdy. She was ready for the truth. The whispers of her past were no longer mere shadows, but vital elements of her being. She could exist not just as a descendant but as a fierce advocate for healing. With an intrepid heart, she held her breath, prepared to confront any turbulence that lay ahead. Little did she know, the next words Joan uttered would open a gateway not just to their past but also to an unexpected confrontation that would demand every ounce of Lucy's resolve. "What I'm about to share could change everything. You might be in danger." The air was thick with tension as Joan's warning hung between them like a gossamer thread, fear and revelation entwined. Lucy held her breath, her mind swirling with possibilities. What danger had her grandmother faced that could now seep into her life? "Mom, what do you mean?" Lucy felt an urgency rise within her, pushing down on the anxiety that threatened to choke her. "What kind of danger?" "We're here, together. Nothing will happen to you." Joan's hands trembled in her lap, the vulnerability of her position stark against the chaotic backdrop. Lucy could see the weight of years pressing down, forcing her grandmother into an unsettling accountability that shifted the dynamics. "There are things in our past," Joan began, her voice barely above a whisper, "people who want to silence the truth. I thought I could protect you both by shielding you from it. But it seems our history is not as buried as I believed." Lucy's mind raced. This wasn't just about familial ties anymore, it was a matter of survival and understanding. "So you've known people might come after us?" She pressed, the edge in her tone breaking through her previous resolve. "I was naive," Joan admitted, her voice cracking. "I thought time would erase the trouble. But those shadows? They don't disappear. They follow you like ghosts, waiting for the perfect moment to return." Every fiber of Lucy's being pulsed with clarity and determination. This was not the time for despair, it was an opportunity for action. The chaos outside loomed large, yet inside her, a beacon flared to life. "Then we fight back," Lucy said, her voice stronger now, resonating with newfound conviction. "We face whatever it is head on. You said I'm ready, let us prove it." Joan regarded her granddaughter with a mix of admiration and apprehension. "Lucy, this is much bigger than just us. There are consequences to every revelation. You have to understand that." "I do understand," Lucy exclaimed, a fire igniting in her chest. "Knowledge is power, and I refuse to be a victim of someone else's choices. I can be a voice for us." As she spoke, the cacophony outside calmed momentarily, a deceptive lull hinting at the storm lurking just beyond the walls. It was then that Lucy recognized she was no longer tethered by her grandmother's fears but was buoyed by her own fierce loyalty and desire to confront the unknown. "Let us gather what we need," Lucy insisted, rising from her seat and pacing the room. "We can't just sit here and wait for something to happen. We need a plan." Joan watched her, a mix of pride and concern etched on her face. The weight of their family history was palpable, yet as the realization dawned, Lucy could feel herself transforming. This journey was about more than uncovering secrets, it became an expedition into her emerging identity, a test of her strength and tenacity. As they started assembling supplies, Lucy's mind whirred with strategic thoughts. She recalled every lesson her grandmother had imparted about resilience, adaptation, and survival, weaving them into a mental tapestry of their impending confrontation. "What if I take the lead?" Joan suggested hesitantly. "I've dealt with this before, I might know how to face them." Lucy turned to her, eyes fiercely determined. "No. This is our story, and I'm not stepping back. We are facing these shadows together, reshaping our narrative. You taught me to stand, remember? There was a severe silence as Joan contemplated Lucy's assertion. The notion of handing control over ignited a wave of fear, but then came acceptance, the power of partnership. All right, Joan conceded, a sense of belonging flooding back. Together, then. But as they prepared to navigate the labyrinth of their past, Lucy's phone buzzed ominously on the table. A message flashed across the screen, one that sent a chill through her veins. It was from an unknown number, but the words were starkly clear. You have until sunset to step back or face the consequences. Lucy's mind reeled. They were being watched. The shadows were closing in, and the stakes had become agonizingly real. Mom, Lucy's resolve trembled at the edge of fear returning. It's happening sooner than I thought. They declared war against their hidden history, and there was no turning back now. What was she willing to risk for the truth, and would she emerge victorious in this treacherous game? Lucy blinked away the chill of the message, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She could hardly believe the words she had just read, but the urgency they carried was undeniable. Time was not on their side. She felt the shadows creeping in, threatening to engulf them if they didn't act swiftly. What should we do? Joan asked, her voice teetering between determination and trepidation. It was in this moment of vulnerability that Lucy realized how critical her role had become, not just as a granddaughter, but as the bulwark against whatever darkness lay ahead. First, we need to get organized, Lucy replied, her mind racing. There was no room for hesitation, only clarity and purpose. We can't just scatter in fear. We need a strategy. She quickly scanned the room for anything that could help. Piles of old papers, her grandmother's well-worn journals documenting years of family history, and a stack of photo albums laid bare their legacy. Each item was a thread of connection to the past, which might hold the key to understanding the threats against them. Mom, those journals contain everything. They might even give us clues about who is after us and what they want. The idea ignited a spark of hope in Lucy's chest. She grabbed a few of the journals and began flipping through the pages, her heart racing with concentration. Joan stood beside her, flipping through one of her older journals as well. If you want to piece together what we're dealing with, you need to know it all. There were certain things I hoped you would never have to learn, but we have no choice now. Then let's learn, Lucy urged, harnessing her growing sense of responsibility. We're not just victims, we can be strategists. Mindset is key here, and we have knowledge. We need to take everything seriously, assess threats, and protect ourselves. The words fell from her mouth with intensity she didn't know she possessed, but they were essential. This was not just about confronting fear, it was about preparation, about empowerment. With each page she read, revelations broke through the panic: a name here, an incident there, interconnected histories swirling like ghosts across the pages. Lucy, look at this, Joan said, excitement piercing through her anxiety as she pointed at a passage. It references an old family feud, a confrontation that wrought poor choices and regrets. We always hoped it had settled, but it clearly hasn't. It feels like a warning. Lucy's lips pressed into a thin line as she absorbed the implications. We need to get in front of this to make our own decisions instead of letting the past choose for us. We can't run away, we must confront these shadows. As they worked side by side, uncovering dark corners of their history, Lucy felt empowered, battling both external consequences and internal doubts. With every page turned, she was not just inheriting a legacy, she was rewriting it. There was noise and volatility outside, a world unaware of their rising tension, but within these walls, Lucy was forging her identity, honing her instincts. The act of discovery became a testament to her resolve. Suddenly, Joan's phone rang, slicing through the silence. They both jumped at the sound, eyes darting toward the device as the caller ID lit up a name they had hoped never to see again. It was a number from her grandmother's past, one that signified danger. Do you think it's them? Joan whispered, panic flooding her gaze. Lucy's heart raced, but instead of succumbing to fear, she found her hand reaching for the phone. We need answers. It might be the key to knowing what comes next. Joan hesitated, concern seeping into her expression. But Lucy felt resolute, the strength of her newfound conviction surging. Whatever comes next, we face it together. As she answered the call, the voice on the other end dripped with knowing familiarity, ominously casual. Lucy? I suggest you both reconsider your options. It may be too late to learn the truth after all. In that moment, the weight of their decision hung heavy, and Lucy braced herself for the confrontation ahead. What new revelations awaited them, and what risks lay in the shadows they would now step toward? The storm was building, and they were at the eye of it. The chill in Lucy's bones deepened as she cradled the phone, the voice on the other end seeping into her mind like a slow poison. The words were a threat disguised as a warning, a promise of consequences that echoed through her thoughts. Yet amid the creeping dread, a competitive spark ignited within her, igniting a fierce determination to protect what was hers. She could feel Joan's apprehensive gaze lingering on her, tension thickening the air. What should we do? Her mother murmured, nearly inaudible over the growing uncertainty. We listen. Lucy's voice sharpened into something resolute. This is our chance to confront whatever it is that haunts us. We need to stay calm and gather information. The silence grew heavy as she continued to listen, absorbing every word that fell from the other side. Reconsider your options, they repeated, almost teasingly. The truth is closer than you think, but are you ready to face it? Each word both terrified and emboldened her. The shadows of the past that had lurked ominously in her life now seemed tangible, as if waiting for her to pluck them from obscurity. That nagging question of readiness echoed, and in that instant, she made a choice, to meet the darkness head-on. Once the call ended, Lucy settled back into the present, her mind racing with ramifications. They had uncovered pieces of a puzzle, now she needed to connect them. We have a chance to regain control. This is just the beginning. Her mind whirred with excitement, igniting plans for both inquiry and defense. Joan watched her, awe mingled with fear flickering in her eyes. What are you planning? This isn't a game, Lucy. It's precisely because it isn't a game that we'll treat it seriously, Lucy countered, pulling the journals closer. We need to step into this truth. There are clues everywhere. Let us find out exactly what we're up against. Cautious optimism simmered beneath her words. Her previous insecurities were being stripped away, revealing an iron will she never knew she had. As she sifted through the journals, buried details surfaced like forgotten echoes, remnants of the family feud suddenly illuminated by the call. Names flowed into her consciousness, figures now crystallized by the urgency of the moment. Find me those names, I need to understand their roles, she instructed Joan, her tone oscillating between facilitator and commander. The duty felt heavy yet exhilarating. Each revelation became a building block of her empowerment. Hours passed, entangled in discussion and discovery. Lucy challenged everything, asking questions that peered deeper than surface answers, determined to trim the fat from her history. Joan, once a pillar of caution, began to mirror Lucy's fierce spirit. Their synergy propelled them through the walls of fear. Here. Joan held up a passage with a shaky hand. This mentions a location, an old estate that belonged to Aunt Clara. There was always talk of treasure, but it sounds more like a trap now. Lucy almost smiled, dark humor breaking through. Or an opportunity, she said, confidence spilling through her. She was at a defining junction, teetering on the edge between preservation and confrontation, grief and discovery. Joan's brow furrowed. But what if it leads us right into danger? Then we'll recognize it for what it is, Lucy said, locking eyes with her mother. Our legacy is too important to ignore. As night fell, Lucy felt alive, not trapped beneath the shadows. The external world thrummed with quiet tension, mirroring their spiraling thoughts. Plans formed, strategies outlined, the excitement of action unfolding. Yet lurking in the vibrancy was the insinuation of deeper turmoil tied to the feud, with rivalries that must be reconciliated before they could truly stand their ground. She felt the urgency like a pulse that would not abate. In the fragile hours after their discoveries, with minds racing ahead, Lucy turned to the journals again, foxed pages whispering secrets. Every choice brought with it darker questions, shadows threatening to rise as they ventured towards the truth. Tomorrow, we confront this history, she said, a thrill running through her. The game had changed, now the stakes had escalated. And with it, the line between the past and their future blurred viciously close. The eerie silence that enveloped the house made it clear tomorrow would not only arrive, but it would deliver the confrontation they were preparing for. Was Lucy truly ready to reclaim their legacy, or would the shadows prove too formidable? The weight of the impending revelation pressed down heavily, anticipation both thrilling and terrifying. Tomorrow loomed larger than life, and Lucy knew they would have to leap into the fervor headfirst. The decision was made. Now, they had only to brace themselves for what awaited. Little did they know the true danger was already closer than they could imagine. The dawn broke with a quiet determination that oddly mirrored Lucy's own resolve. She felt a firm sense of duty coursing through her veins, a duty not just to uncover the buried family secrets but to liberate herself and her mother from the chains of silence. Last night's revelations had shifted her world. The weight of their history no longer felt like an anchor but rather a fuel for change. Lucy surveyed her surroundings, the attic cloaked in soft morning light. She had shifted from being a passive observer to an active participant in her family narrative. Each journal page flipped, and each name researched felt like peeling back layers of an onion, exposing wounds aching for healing, yet threatening tears. As she and Joan prepared to head to Aunt Clara's estate, a mix of anticipation and anxiety buzzed in the air. The moment she had once dreaded now stood before her like an uncharted path glimmering with potential. Lucy remembered her mother's frail confidence, now revitalized by their joint resolve. They shared unspoken strength during their morning grapples with hurtful truths, setting intentions that reverberated between them. "Do you think we're making the right choice?" Joan asked, her voice lined with trepidation as they drove through the misty streets. "Absolutely," Lucy replied, her tone firm. "We're taking charge. Whatever awaits us at the estate, we will face it together. There's no turning back now." As they neared the estate, the imposing structure loomed, a fortress of memories and unforgotten silence tucked behind the high stone walls. Thick vines climbed its sides, nature reclaiming what was once vibrant and bright. Lucy felt a wave of emotions crash over her. This place represented shadows but also resilience. It was a testament to their past but could also be a springboard for their future. "Let us focus on what we're here to find," Lucy said, taking a deep breath as they crossed the threshold into the estate. Each step echoed the commitment to confront their legacy, confront the truths they had neglected for far too long. As they navigated through the estate's dimly lit rooms, dusty furniture and cobwebs caught their attention. Too many years abandoned, too many memories hidden behind layers of neglect. The scent of old wood and musty pages filled the air, mingling with an unmistakable sense of purpose. "This place holds answers," Joan murmured, awe tempered with fear. With each door they opened and every box they unearthed, time felt both an ally and adversary. Lucy discovered artifacts of family lore, photographs of days now lost, and fragments of correspondence that revealed the treachery her grandmother had tried to shield them from. Layer by layer, their family narrative unpacked before them. Then, behind a heavy bookshelf, Lucy spotted a small silver chest tucked away. Adrenaline surged through her as she reached for it. "Mom, I think I found something," she called, her excitement palpable. Joan hurried over, her eyes widened with anticipation. Together they pried it open, revealing letters that spoke of betrayal, choices made in desperation, and regrets that had festered through the years. They were a chronicle of their family's struggles, each word pushing against the silence that had long awaited this release. "This explains so much," Lucy whispered, feeling the weight of emotions overwhelm her. "We can finally uncover everything that's been haunting us." The letters confirmed what they had feared. Past mistakes had reflected into their present, the shadows of decisions that had once seemed protective now looming ominously in their lives. They spent hours poring over the contents until Lucy felt a shifting within herself. No longer was she just a little girl wanting to protect her mother, she had transformed into a strong, fierce advocate for her family's future. "Together, we can reclaim what has been lost," Lucy said, determination radiating from her. This isn't just about uncovering the past, it's about finding a way forward. As understanding dawned upon them, Lucy reflected on her own metamorphosis. She had become the courageous voice that demanded change. By confronting these truths, she was transforming sorrow into empowerment. Leaving the estate, Lucy felt recognition rising within. She no longer just carried the burdens of her family legacy but wore it with pride and responsibility. She looked at Joan, who mirrored her newfound resilience, and together they had traversed the tumultuous waters that had once threatened to drown them. "Let us bring this truth to light every chance we get," Lucy suggested, looking into her mother's eyes and seeing a woman reborn with newfound courage. "Our story needs to be told." Joan nodded, a smile breaking through years of strain. "You've grown so much, Lucy. We'll embrace the past together, and finally let it guide us, not dictate us." On their journey home, the morning sun glimmered on the horizon, illuminating a world of opportunities that awaited. Lucy felt solid confidence planting its roots in her heart, a delightful familiarity with herself that she aimed to continue nurturing. A palpable sense of achievement enveloped them. Their confrontation had yielded truths, and in the process, transformed them both. Each road ahead shimmered with possibility. They had created a pathway towards healing. Now, armed with the power of shared truth, Lucy stepped into her future boldly. She understood now that confronting shadows was not simply about erasing them but illuminating paths of understanding, gained through bravery, honesty, and love. The past might have shaped them, but it no longer defined them. Lucy had conquered her family's legacy, and the shadows became merely signposts on the journey towards a brighter tomorrow. Inspired by her leap into discovery? You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions about Lucy's brave transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.